Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hello and welcome to Getting to Know You. I'm your host, Robert Jaquay. On today's program, we're going to be talking with Philip Morris, who is the Executive Director and CEO of Proctors Theatre. Let's go meet him. Philip, thank you very much for agreeing to be a guest on my show today.
Oh, I'm delighted. Thank you very much for having me.
Before we start talking about Proctors and all the wonderful things that happen there, I'd like to have you give our viewers a bit of your background and where you came from and how you got to where you're at right now.
Well, I was born and raised in New Haven, Connecticut. Parents are immigrants from Greece, both of them. Went to college upstate in Hamilton College in Utica. I was the first of the generation to go to college. So while it sounds like an older story than me, or at least it seemed to me it should be an older story than me, that's my story. Loved to sing, was singing from when I was 13, 14 years old, and sang in college and ended up getting a scholarship job as part of my financial aid package, managing the music department. Toured a choir through Britain, another choir to the Southwest, raised money for all kinds of projects. I mean, it was a pretty substantial job. There were 5 performing ensembles I was responsible for and the music library. After I was graduated, I considered law school because all my friends were going to law school, and kind of drove onto the campus I matriculated to and went, I can't do this. I can't. So I went back to Utica and started a roofing and siding company because uncles had done that and I worked with them in the summer. And after a summer of doing quite well and drinking a fair amount of beer after work and playing a lot of golf because the college had a free golf course, I decided this wasn't going to work for the winter, and sort of discovered there was a field called arts administration. It's 1977, so there were no graduate programs in it like there are now or anything like that. And went to the alumni office and found that there was somebody who was actually a practitioner, one person, and called that alumnus, and he was leaving his job in Western New York at Chautauqua County, and I applied for it and I got it. So I actually followed someone else from my alma mater and went to Western New York, where I was for 25 years running the Arts Council for Chautauqua County before I came to Proctors 2002.
2002 you came.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. You certainly have been a welcome presence here.
Thanks, the place has been very welcoming.
Let's talk about Proctors. I mean, we could assume that most people who are watching the show know about Proctors Theatre in Schenectady and the wonderful things that it does and has. But let's talk a bit about Proctors and how it came to be. I mean, it's significant in this area, right, as far as a theater.
Well, 1920s, there were probably 40 of these throughout the capital region. I think there were 12 in Schenectady alone. That was entertainment. I mean, people went to vaudeville and to the emerging film business for fun because there was no TV. That's not what you did. People didn't stay home for that kind of entertainment. Slowly, they've all disappeared. Not all, obviously. The Palace still exists and Proctors, but that's it. Proctors and Troy is probably, from what I understand, beyond reclamation. So probably 30, 35 of these facilities are gone. This one would be gone too, except for the efforts of volunteers and citizens who said, no, stop, we want to save this.
Stop the wrecking ball.
Let's do something. There was actually, I mean, it's documented. I've seen the plan, a plan that called for tearing it down for a parking lot. So while there was no wrecking ball about to swing, the city had adopted a plan that said take it down. And the efforts of those volunteers were pretty significant. They had to raise enough money to put a roof on it. At the time, $100 and some odd thousand, which was enormous money in 1979, I think that was. And in many ways, as I tell the story, I'm going to sound as if I was there because I was doing the exact same thing in Jamestown, New York, and Chautauqua County. 1980, putting a roof on an old vaudeville theater, trying to save it. 1983, starting to program it. In my life, 1990, having renovated it and reopened it. So that storyline's not very different here.
Right.
You know, roof got on, I think 1980, first season happened. I might have that wrong, but close. And then for 24 or 5 years, Proctors was the Broadway presenter, really the major entertainment and arts presenter of the capital region. Amazingly.
There really is. I mean, and I don't know how much you know about this, but I mean, it seems to me that this whole area had a lot of theater, and yet, you say the Palace downtown and whatever have you in Albany. So theater was really a part of life when these things were being built, and entertainment and vaudeville houses, and they were also movie houses, weren't they?
Right. In fact, ours, like many, ours was built to sort of accommodate both at a changing period of technology. It was built for vaudeville, prepared for film. Film became more popular even as the building was being built, and some things that would have benefited vaudeville weren't constructed because the owners and contractors are going, you know what, these movies might just make it, and we might be able to save $10,000 by not doing this crossover, and you know we can always do it later if we're wrong. So in fact, they're really reflections of the change of technology. You know, we talk about technological change now, but it really was not much different in 1926 and 27. It's just that it wasn't digital.
Right, and then because obviously they were silent films, and then they had to equip it for sound.
And then they were color, and then all of a sudden, I mean, that whole world really changed wildly from 1925 to 1930.
And in the research I did, it mentioned that I think GE did the demonstration for television at Proctors.
Right, we were the recipient, and they were sending it from the plant and the campus, and we were the receiver side on a large screen TV.
Wow.
Wow. Kind of, we have a great photograph of it too. It's pretty amazing, though.
And TV really spelled the decline, didn't it, of the active use of the house for music and theater?
Well, theater worked pretty successfully probably through the early 70s, and the decline in theater happened from the early 70s to the late 70s as places like Colonie got developed. I mean, as America, there's this fabulous book by Michael Ventura called Shadow Dancing in America. And it's a collection of essays, and one of the essays is about all for a nickel, all to save a nickel on a quart of milk. And it's kind of interesting because the notion of retailing outside the outskirts of the densely populated cities obviously followed the pattern of people living outside of densely populated cities, but also retailers started to retail lower prices. And so to save a nickel on a quart of milk, people would travel even before they moved to the outskirts,
okay,
and abandon a little bit the neighborhood store. And that migration out created the pressure for the first movie theater. I remember in my lifetime, the first movie theater that was out was in Hamden, Connecticut. And the first movie that everybody went to see was Mary Poppins. And it played, I think, for 6 months. And everybody went from the cities out to a field that had a shopping plaza and the new cinema.
Yep.
And it was cinema 1, 2, 3. It was like, oh my God, 3 screens. And that really was the beginning of the end for the kind of movie theater that was a 2,700 seat urban experience. And then the distribution economics changed so that the only way for a cinema operator to make any money on a movie was to keep it a long time, which is why houses became smaller and smaller. If everybody was happy in a week in a 2,700 seat house, 95% of that money was going to the distributor. But if they could wait it out 4 or 5 weeks, that number would go down, and suddenly at the 4th week, the movie owner might actually make 50% of the movie money. So that economy started to shift, and the large cinemas in downtown centers just couldn't make it anymore.
Couldn't make it anymore. Now, I grew up near Utica, and so, and I know what happened to Utica in terms of its industry and basically just almost shutting down. And I've been at the Stanley Theater in Utica, which is a similar
Great place.
similar type house.
Doing a big renovation now.
Are they doing a big renovation?
Huge renovation.
And so when you came here, you came in 2002, right?
Yes.
And Proctors had been successful for quite a number of years, but there was this whole convergence, correct me if I'm wrong, convergence with bringing the downtown area or the center of Schenectady really back to life, or had that happened a bit before?
No. You're right about the timing. It is a convergence. The leadership of Proctors had thought and strategized a variety of ways to expand the stage house, which was also driven by the economics of the business, what I call the phantom effect. Cities watched as Montreal was the first city to take a really substantial, major New York production, Phantom of the Opera, and make it something that they would build a theater around. And it was all because of the efforts of Ed Mirvish, and he would create the seafood warehouse next door and the beef warehouse or whatever it's called, because Ed was an amazing guy, and he changed Toronto. I like to tell the story that in the 70s, everybody in Toronto went to Buffalo to have fun.
I can imagine,
which is hard to believe today, because if you live in Western New York, Toronto is your destination.
Yep.
As other cities saw that, they all wanted the capacity for the Phantom to come. And so city after city built an expanded stage house or a new theater to accommodate this Phantom effect. And as that happened, the industry started to change how it distributed product from almost full scale, but able to shrink it down so it might fit into a small stage like Proctor's, to, no, we're only going to put Wicked out if you got a big room. We're only going to put Lion King out if you have a big room. We're only going to do, and slowly it was emerging and quite obvious to the board in 1999, I think they did the first study, that if they didn't do an expansion of some kind, they were going to be left like the old vaudeville in the transition to movies. They were going to be left behind. And what that would have meant in this particular region is that who else was going to do it? So it wasn't just that Proctors was going to be left behind, but those kinds of things wouldn't come to the capital region.
At all.
And yes, that was synchronous with the community's desire and energies to recreate itself. Okay. And really by a brilliant effort and exercise creating Metroplex, creating a regional funding source to support the infrastructure of its central city. And that focus was just powerful as hell, not just financially, raises $6.5 million a year for economic development, but emotionally and intellectually, it put focus on how Schenectady, which had suffered so much from the focus that was once GE, and had lost that spinning focus. It gave it a new kind of place and center for energy and thought and experimentation and effort.
Now, when you mention stage house, and I'm familiar with theater and theater structure, but I can imagine that most of our viewers aren't really clear as to what you mean by stage house.
Everything behind the curtain.
Everything behind the curtain.
If you're sitting in that audience today, you probably could scarcely notice that we've done anything. The seats are different, the carpet's different, we painted some things, but it doesn't look any different than 10 years ago. But from the curtain back, it's turned into a factory. It's gone triple in size and square footage. It's a real loading dock. Trucks can really come and unload without laying everything out in the rain on Stratton Plaza waiting for it to get in. There's enough room for all the sets. Even with the smaller shows, not the Phantoms, which could never have come, but the things that did come, like Cats or Annie, a lot of the set pieces would stay in the truck because they wouldn't fit on stage. So in the old Proctors, people from the capital region often, not always, but often, didn't ever see the whole show anyway.
Pieces of sets were never there.
Things were never there, right. And that's gone. What we've done is created a space that is spectacular. There are better stage houses from the curtain back, but they're built out in fields, often in Florida, as huge expansion happened. Rarely in urban environments because land is so difficult to get. So in Buffalo, they expanded their stage house terrifically, but they still load and unload on the street.
There you go.
We were able, because of the condition of the city, because of the partnership with Metroplex, because of a whole range of planning that put us in the middle, to do it as well as one could do it in an urban place.
Now, just want to take a little bit more time with this, because you have to know that a show needs this much space in order to get it, and Phantom obviously is a huge show. You do have, though, a finite space as far as proscenium and the front of the stage.
And that was plenty big.
Okay, and that's plenty big. So what you're really doing is you're adding depth
and width
and
height.
Okay.
So behind the curtain, I mean, if you were to put a little curtain there, behind the curtain, what we did was we took a room behind the curtain that was 65 feet high, made it almost 90. That was, 90 feet wide and made it 160. And that was 30 feet deep from the curtain line back and made it 50. And then behind that, put a crossover and a loading dock big enough for 2 trucks to unload and just let it sit there out of the rain.
Okay.
Plus dressing rooms.
Now, when a show comes, do you actually have stage hands there that load and unload, or does that all come with the package? I mean, do they drive the trucks?
It's all local.
It's all local.
Proctors has 5 full-time in-house stagehands, and then through the stagehands local, IA, we hire on a per-hour basis stagehands who are very qualified to deliver the rest of the work. For a show like Phantom, again, we're sticking to Phantom, it could be anything, but a show like Phantom had 22 trucks, and on any given day, we probably had 50, 60 guys working. I say guys or gals too. But
yeah, sure.
50, 60 people were working just to load, unload, hang, whatever. Kind of amazing.
Sure, you know, wow.
It's just incredible.
Now, a show like Phantom, okay, we're going to stick on Phantom for a while, but a show like Phantom must cost an awful lot of money. I mean, within your budget, you have to provide for how much you rent these shows. What is it? How does this work?
Our budget, the year of Phantom, our budget. Proctors had been around $3.5 million a year. The year of Phantom, we became $8. And actually, we've grown since then, so that wasn't just a one-year anomaly, because the larger shows have that effect. The way it works typically is that you make a guarantee to a show. You know, they have a certain nut to come for the week, and the local presenter guarantees that. And then there's a whole bunch of middle costs that are agreed about labor and marketing and other things. And then after those middle costs are dealt with, which might include a fixed amount of money for rent for us. After that, there'd be a split of the overages. So it's kind of complicated, but there's a lot of exposure. To do a Broadway series is just basically commit $1.8 million to do 4 weeks of $1.7 million, $1.8 million
wow.
of
yeah.
You know, if not one person showed up, what would happen? You know, would have $1 million something of obligations.
Yeah. Yeah. How much risk is involved in I mean, we can talk about putting a season together, but when you now Phantom would sell itself no matter what, but I mean, how much risk would you take a calculated risk, or would you say no, we want to go with all these shows are so well known and people are just hot to see them?
Yeah, but how many of those are there?
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
I mean, think about it. There's Lion King, there's Wicked, there's Phantom, there's Jersey Boys. After that, is there a no-brainer? I don't know. Most people wouldn't have thought Spamalot was a no-brainer. In fact, we surprised most of the people in the industry by doing as well as we did, by selling it absolutely clean. I mean,
really?
People were surprised. They didn't think we could do it, and it also wasn't doing that well other places. And we're not the biggest market. We're a pretty small marketplace. Capital Region smaller than Hartford, and Hartford didn't quite sell it out. Did very well, but didn't quite sell it out. So yeah, there's a lot of exposure, a lot of exposure.
Now you do have a habit, and I'm sure rightfully so, of bringing favorites back? I mean, Cats has been there how many times?
I don't even know.
And could there ever be an end to it? But obviously, it's a show that's proven, and people will still want to see it again. And I imagine if you would all of a sudden see the house diminish considerably, you'd say that's the end. We're not going to. Cats is done.
Yeah, right. It's a mixed bag list, the repeat part of the business, because you want, clearly you want people happy. I mean, that's what we're in business for, really. I mean, we're not a for-profit company. We're an exempt corporation. We're like, a Red Cross. I mean, we do things because they're the right thing to do. We wouldn't make it without contributions. We don't make it on sales only. And so you're trying to balance off meeting a broad range of community desires and anticipations, and doing something innovative and exciting. And so that balancing act, I think, if you look at our season, is, I think, pretty nicely balanced, because there's new plays, there's new short works, there's dangerous music, and then, which is a series that we call by that name, and then there's the repeat of Cats. I mean, and on balance, that, I think, represents the interests of the Capital Region.
And now, so the interests of the Capital Region. So when you put together a season, how many shows do you do in a season?
Well, we've grown from about 27 titles to 130 this year.
That's pretty impressive.
That's a lot. There's a lot of stuff that's in that building now, with the GE Theater, the 440 Theater, and the main stage.
Now, so when you think about the type of audience you're going to get, because there's people who want to go see the Broadway shows but may not want to go see the opera. So integrating, how does that work? Are you set by a schedule also of what's available when?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The process of committing to events is so peculiar. It's a very peculiar game, because you have, traditionally, the more classic, the farther out commitments have to be made. If I want to commit to an orchestra, I'm committing 2.5, 3 years ahead.
Oh, wow.
And the more popular, the closer. I mean, I can't get some rock or popular music or comedians except 90 days out. So you got this goofy balancing act between the demands of what that industry and that particular niche of that industry wants to do, what experience has shown, what surveys and information from the audience has shown, and then what you might want to be doing because you feel obligated to it. And all those things, not unlike being a librarian, I think. All those things come together. I mean, yeah, it'd be great. You could do more. You could get more circulation by just putting graphic novels in the library, right? And
you're probably very right there. Wanted to ask a little bit more. I mean, I'm just curious about this whole putting together of the season. And do you go to conventions? I'm going to use the word convention. Or do you go? Is there a place where there's things that are exhibited? Are people saying, we want you to take our show on, or is it something you just sort of go through catalogs and whatever have you?
Yeah. It's a mixed bag, actually, of all those things. There's my own experience. What I go and do myself, which is a lot. I'm probably in a theater seat, including Proctors, 5 times a week, year-round.
Okay.
Then there's a convention. There are a couple of them that are around different subject areas that you go to. One's quite big and has floor upon floor in New York City of exhibitors. And then there are groups that we belong to. We belong to a group of independent producing theaters, or we belong, and that particular group meets once a year and even decide shows to invest in together that might go to New York or Broadway. In fact, Proctors owns a little tiny bit of Spamalot because we invested in it. And that we did that so that we could provide an alternative form of financing and guarantee that something would come to our facility, because part of the deal is we have the right of first refusal.
There you go.
Then there's a group that does that around popular music. It's called TipCon. And so there's a variety of different, largely unstructured, or not unstructured, they're structured, but they're accidental groups. They're groups you run into rather than there is one society to belong to.
Sure.
And we also belong to the Broadway Theater League, which deals with the Tonys and does the Tonys and supports the Broadway theater only. In fact, Proctors is, I think, one of 2 upstate theaters that votes in the Tonys.
Really?
I go and see everything to vote in the Tonys.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
Lucky you. Busy man. So you're not just sitting at a desk, you're not just sleeping, you're actually out there and you're moving and you're sitting in theater seats.
I am never at a desk.
Just as well. I never liked one personally. Now, we talked about being basically halfway through the season with more to come. When are you going to launch the new season for 2000?
Middle of April. April 16th, I think, is when we're saying. I don't remember exactly the date, but April 15 or 16, we'll announce it. We're going to do it a little bit differently. I think we sort of discovered that growing to 130 titles and using a good-looking, but the structure of a booklet, a catalog that we had done before was too complicated. Mm-hmm. So we're coming up with some different ways to approach how we tell people what we're doing. We're pretty excited about next year already, actually.
Now, you've talked about a couple shows that I would love to see, and I don't want you to reveal your hand, but I mean, you mentioned something like Wicked. I mean, is there an eventuality that a show like that would be coming? Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're all coming. Every one of them, and I'm not telling you anymore.
Okay. I'm not going to.
Yeah, but they're all coming.
I'm not
because we have the place for it, and we're proving that we have a marketplace for it.
Okay, interesting. And when for instance, Wicked is going to Chicago, and Chicago has basically turned a theater over to it. It's basically a permanent run there. It might have started as one of these traveling shows.
They call them sit-downs. They go not knowing how long they'll be there. They know it'll be a long time, but not knowing how long, and they stay. In the case of Phantom, it stayed for 15 years in Toronto or 20 years in Toronto.
Yeah.
At Chicago, who knows? People keep going; they'll just keep it there.
But the likelihood of that happening around here, it just doesn't really. I mean,
no, a sit down in a marketplace of we're 800,000 people. We're a pretty small marketplace, really. If you looked at of the members that belong to this independent presenters network that invests in shows, where there are 51 or 52 theaters, we're the smallest by a long shot. Smallest marketplace by a long shot. So a sit down is not likely.
Okay. Wicked could come. I don't care how long it's here, but I love this show. I really do. It's a wonderful show. Now, you mentioned other venues. You have the main. You call it the main stage, or you have the main theater.
Main stage.
And you have the GE theater, which is it basically or totally a film?
No, it's not at all. It's actually a very unusually shaped room. It's all black floor, black everything, black carpet drapes. There are 434 seats. They disappear in 90 seconds, holding a button, and they all fall apart like bleachers almost, but they're theatrical seats with arms, and they go away, so it becomes a 5,500 square foot flat floor for our dances. We have a couple different regional dance clubs that come there for conventions and conferences and meals. We've served lunches and dinners and breakfasts and all kinds of stuff. We hosted conferences like the New York State Tourism Conference, and Zelda Spitzer came and spoke at a podium, and everybody's at tables and chairs having a lunch. So it's a pretty flexible room. We also designed it so it was acoustically tunable. There are clouds where the lights are in, and they go up and down about 35 feet, so you can create a little shell for an acoustic band, and drapes all around the property, around the building, so that we can change the reverberation by how much drape is let out or put away.
Now, in the projections, I mean, I got a phone call recently, and because I have an opera series here, and to sort of pass this on to the people who come, that you're showing opera productions that are filmed at La Scala. They're not live, but they're and it's digitally broadcast. I mean, these are digital projections.
Right. We have iWorks Film, which is the competitor to IMAX. So these big widescreen films right now, we're showing Bugs 3D and Forces of Nature. In fact, this week for the vacation week, we're showing them all day long, and kids and families are coming. We're busy like you are, kids and families coming all the time.
Right.
And then we decided to install first-class digital projection, which is not that difficult anymore, but the distribution of digital product is what's not finalized. There's no standard for it. And we've signed up with a company called Emerging Pictures that has a particular standard for it that we like. And so, yeah, the film gets downloaded at night, and we broadcast it or show it the next couple days or whatever.
It's phenomenal. I mean, experience. If you haven't experienced before, you really have to adjust yourself because there's this sort of feeling
Perfection to it.
Yep.
I know it's amazing. And
Yep.
the sound in our facility, because it's an iWorks theater, the sound is unbelievable. It's just spectacular. Our audiences are loving hearing opera there.
Now you have another smaller theater space as well.
Yep, building a couple doors down. It used to be an Oddfellows Hall, the whole building. The first floor is dance studio and artist studios. The top floor is the Northeast Ballet. And in the middle is a 100-seat theater. We call it 440 upstairs. It's at 440 State Street. It's part of Proctors. And it's a lovely 110-seat theater where we've had things like Hudson Stageworks play-by-play.
Now could I call you a visionary? I mean, what is that? Can I? Why not, right? I picked up an article on you. There was all sorts of adjectives to your name, but anyways, what about the future? I mean, is there something? I mean, it's been built, it's been expanded. You've done this extraordinary job. I mean, where do we go from here with this institution?
Well, the institution built a fabulous factory. And it's going to take a few years to have it hum, to have activity, and we're going to be inventing constantly around what we do and how we do it. We have these great workshops that kids build bugs and hang them in a fairly large walk-through rainforest before they go see Bugs 3D. And we'll be inventing like that on a non-stop basis. We love partnerships with other people. We have all kinds of programs that are built upon partnerships. So the Capital Region storytellers are in our building doing all kinds of new things. We are very active around Art Night, the third Fridays in Schenectady, and our building is packed with stuff. So you'll see us in this constant mode of creating things that bring community together, because that's what we want to do, is bring community together.
Now, I mean, it's to me, it's remarkable, and we talked a little bit beforehand about some of the challenges of getting people to come to certain things like orchestra and whatever have you, that we have a significant group of people in this whole region that want to come and see the variety of things that you present there. Do you get outsiders? I mean, how far out do you go as far as your audiences? I mean, do people bus in?
Oh, yeah. We have lots of buses. We have a regular customer from Portland, Maine, who would rather come to Proctors than go to Boston. They make it a weekend. They stay at the Parker Inn, but they come 3 times a year. They pick things they want to do. They're very eclectic in their tastes, and they decide, well, you know what? I want to come here. Colm Wilkinson, who was the first Phantom of the Opera, and we had him here a year and a half ago. And they came for Colm Wilkinson, had dinner, spent the night, it's just kind of amazing. So clearly the heart of the market is Albany, Southern Saratoga, and Schenectady, and every ring out penetration changes, but the rings out go pretty far. It's kind of amazing.
Now, what about the summertime? I mean, I know there's activities, things going on all the time there, but basically you're on hiatus from the big shows, and because it's somehow traditional to do fall and winter.
I think part of that too was it's traditional, and I think part of it was Schenectady was not a place to be on a beautiful summer day. I think that's going to change. I'm not so stupid as to think Schenectady is going to become Saratoga. At the same time, I think Saratoga has become too Saratoga, and there's a lot of people who would maybe prefer something a little less, high money, high pressure, and I think that Schenectady may be able to invent a summer impression and personality that's very fun and very interesting and different. This year we're doing 9 weeks of summer arts institutes for young people. We're having a chess grandmaster who's doing a week of chess camp. We're going to do an indoor-outdoor version of Tony and Tina's wedding for 2 weeks. Outdoor under a tent and then come inside for the rest of the service. So we're going to be in the summer world because we think we should. In fact, we even decided recently that we're changing our iWorks movies August 1 so that next year's selection of films, which will be The Human Body and Monsters of the Deep, will be available with this year's films, Bugs 3D and Forces of Nature, in a summer package.
Okay.
So for July and August, there'll be 4 interesting titles for families who might want to see a widescreen film presentation. So we're going to be in the summer game as we've not been before, and not in a foolish way, but in a smart, strategic, one step at a time kind of way. And our neighbors are starting to look great. Downtown Schenectady is starting to look terrific, and the better that gets, the more likely people are going to want to go and spend a whole day or go to a movie at Bowtie and have lunch, and on a rainy day come see an iWorks movie. Perfect. That'll be great.
I mean, I've lived in the area for almost 30 years now, and I just discovered recently, I'm not sure how telling this is about me and what I do, but how many restaurants there are in Schenectady, and so wonderful places to eat, and so it can be a full evening of dining and theater and as you say, other activities.
I live downtown in the Stockade, and my wife and I are, we're just blown away. We used to leave our driveway in Jamestown, which is a very lovely small town. And we'd go, well, let's go out to eat tonight. We'd drive out the driveway, because in that case we had to drive to get where we wanted to go. And we wouldn't even know which direction to turn. We'd kind of go, oh, geez, I don't know where to go. We walk out of our front door in the Stockade, and there's a dozen options that we can walk to, and we're happy to provide them our business. You know, it's amazing, from Parisi's to Cornell's to Stockade Inn to Ambition to, it's just amazing. So
I think it is amazing. It's wonderful. When I moved here 30 years ago, I lived in the city for a while, and I got here, and something wasn't being broadcast on public television, and I called them up and said, it's being shown in New York, and they said, well, this isn't New York. And I said, you can say that again. And over the years, I mean, this whole area has just changed, and seeing this wonderful transformation in Schenectady and with Proctors, it's very exciting. I mean, you don't really have to go that far to get great stuff.
No.
Yeah.
No, you don't. It's pretty cool.
Now, really getting a subscription, I mean, are there still subscriptions available? Can you still piece things together, or is it basically a single ticket situation right now?
The way we have done things, and we're going to continue, is we've isolated Broadway as a package, and that'll continue like that. And at this point, it's too late to buy this year's if you want to. But then we also package everything else we do, just buy 4 shows or more on those 10% discount. And so that's always possible. You could start tomorrow and do that if 4 things tickle your fancy.
Okay. Now, people can go on a website.
Proctors.org.
Proctors.org, and we'll show that for people. They can also call the box office.
518-382-3884.
Okay, or they can...
No. 346-6204. I just gave you an administrative number.
Don't call the first number.
6204.
Or they can walk up to the box office. And what are the box office hours?
10 to 5:30, 6 days a week.
6 days a week.
And the box office on the web is all the time.
All the time.
And we don't use the big expensive ticket operations. We converted it all to in-house. So buying a ticket on the web is not a $6 or $7 a ticket add-on. It's a flat $5 or $6 for an entire order. So if you spend $1,000,
so it's not each ticket.
It's $6, and we'll mail you the ticket at no additional charge. So we're not making it difficult for people financially.
Great. Well, as I promised, I wasn't going to squeeze any new information out of you, but before we end, and we're getting ready to wrap up today, is there anything else you'd like to add to what we've been talking about?
Well, the only thing would be that I think we're going to be seeing over the next, you started to ask what else in the future, and I didn't finish, I suppose, in my own head. It wasn't your fault.
That's how I work too.
I think Schenectady over the next 4 or 5 years is going to continue to grow this arts, culture, and entertainment reputation. There's a vibrancy around this that's not just us. And as the museum makes its decisions and makes some changes that they're going to do, I don't know what they'll be exactly. They don't know what they're going to be, but they're on a track for them to be for substantive changes. As we have 12 artist studios that are fully occupied now. We're looking to grow that. There's just this sense that Schenectady is going to be a very, very cultural place, and that's very cool. I think in 5 years it's going to be pretty amazing.
Cool is a word. I agree. Well, thank you again for agreeing to be on the show. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.
Hope we can talk again.
Yeah, it's a deal.
And thanks for joining me on Getting to Know You. I hope you enjoyed today's show and will join us again next time. Until then, have a good one.